Welcome back here to T-Mobile Arena. The creepy, it's over this shoulder. The creepy dragon is there right behind me. Look how creepy that dragon is. There is a light that is going above my bald head there. On, off. So we got a lot going on. The music is still on. I forgot my headphones at home, so hopefully you can hear me. Nonetheless, 7-0-0 at home. Pretty ridiculous. I was surprised. I had thought that there was a pretty good. I thought they were good at home to start another season before. 4 was the record before this year. Obviously, the first year is the one that we kind of think of the most as the home dominance, and there was that early loss, the one that Fleury got kneed in the head, and they went out. But beyond that, they basically didn't lose again for a while. But as a whole, I thought this was. I didn't realize 6 was even the record. 4 was the record, so they actually hit the record at the beginning of this homestand, and then to continue it on to get to 6-7. One more win would be the longest home winning streak in franchise history, would tie it at 8. That was also in 2017-18. That was at the beginning of the season. That is the one that most of us would think about. And then if they can get a 9th, that would be, I believe it's on the 11th. It's a while. So it's going to be a bit. But just on this game alone, I don't want to spend too much time on this game because it's basically immaculate. It's about as good as they can play. It's pretty much the entire plan. I mean, obviously, we've seen a number of the things that they haven't been able to do. They were able to do a lot of it. I know a lot of the headlines are probably going to go to like the third period goals from Kolazar, Wah getting on board. They got some goal scoring outside of the top line. Granted, the top line kind of built a lot of it. Kolazar's line in the third period was clearly the best at any moment, I thought, over the entirety of the game. But to me, the game gets off to a good start and the game gets going in the right direction because of the Carlson line more so than anything. I thought they were just excellent to start the game. They get that first goal, moving the puck. Great pass from Alex Holtz to get that thing over to Pietrangelo, and then the Golden Knights are just hitting corners. It's been pretty unbelievable, basically all of this home season. When they have an open opportunity, they're popping the puck in the corners. It's been really fun to watch. It's a team that historically has not been a great, very accurate shooting team. And for them to be able to do that at this point through the home season has been really good. And that's something that that is something I want to get into a little bit because I put in a lot of research earlier this morning and in the last couple of days to kind of try to understand how much of this is replicable, how much of this is kind of luck, how much of this is small sample size early season. Obviously, I think it's pretty clear you're not going to have 11 guys at whatever it is. I think they have like 9 or 10 guys nearing a point per game now. Like there's a lot of guys looking at career highs in goals, career highs in points. I think a lot of that is going to slow down and it is going to change a little bit in how it goes. But there's a lot of it that I do think is replicable, more so than even maybe some of the numbers indicate. So I'll get into that in a second, but I'll just start with this game as a whole. To me, the beginning of the game was interesting in that when Calgary was getting the puck in the offensive zone, Vegas was not doing a great job of really killing off the play as fast as they have been, or at least as fast as they've been trying to in some of these games. So I looked at that immediately as that's potentially a negative. That's potentially something that might end up hurting this team as this game goes on. But what you started to see was them actually fall into a little bit of what they had done in the past and what's made them one of the better defensive teams in the NHL for an extended period of time now. And what that was when the puck was along the outside, they're not challenging and putting themselves out of position. You weren't seeing those passes through the seams. You weren't seeing that opportunity where the puck gets to the middle. Instead, they're allowing these passes along the walls. They're trying to get the one-on-one stick battles when they can, and they were winning a good portion of those. But then when the puck did get to the points or the puck did get outside of the circles or in less dangerous areas, and they try to funnel it towards the middle, you saw Vegas do a really, really good job of making sure that not only were they blocking the shot before it even got to Hill, but then winning on that second chance, winning on those stick battles, and giving themselves every opportunity they could to clear those pucks out. That became the hallmark of the first period, which allowed them to really get out to a pretty good start without having to do all that much offensively. That was probably their worst offensive period was the first period, but it kind of set the tone of how it was going to go. Then in the second period, that's when you started to see the stick battle dominance take over. That's when we really started to see the strength of the Golden Knights sticks and their strength as a whole kind of take away some of the things Calgary was trying to do. Calgary appeared to try to be a team that wanted to come in and be a little bit more physical, wanted to kind of hit the Golden Knights as often as they could, and it was taking them out of plays. It was putting them in positions that they didn't really want to be in. And at the second period, they kind of were caught in between. Vegas is winning a lot of the stick battles. They're trying to get in these physical battles, and Vegas looks like the much, much faster team. It was a really nice period to kind of tilt the ice for a majority of the period. Had it down there, had a lot of good opportunities, a lot more holding the puck in the offensive zone, something we haven't seen a ton of this season, even though they have scored a ton of goals at home. They haven't had that extended number of offensive zone time. And what is it? Oh, they took it off. They win. Yeah, so it is a 37-16 in shots. Like, that's as dominant, if not, I mean, it's definitely the most dominant performance they've had in that category all season. And that's because it was a territorially dominant game. And that's something that I tweeted out also, was the number of faceoffs that occurred in the Vegas offensive zone. It was unbelievable that deep into the third period, Adin Hill had not frozen the puck once the entire game. Not a single time did he freeze the puck and there was a defensive zone draw. Usually that's a good thing. You slow the game down, you get the things going the way you want it to. But in this particular game, the reason why he didn't have to is they didn't have opportunities. They were not getting the puck all the way to the defense. And that's why I've been saying it all season long. I will continue to say it all season long. I said it all off season. I'll probably say it all off season next season. As long as Bruce Cassidy is the coach of this team, the goalie is not going to be the most important player on the roster. It's how they play in front of them. Now, if the team is not good in front of them, then the goalie becomes important and he has to bail the rest of the team out. That's been asked of them a number of times here. It hasn't necessarily happened. Fortunately, they've outscored some of those woes to this point. But today, they played a great defensive game in front of Adin Hill, and that's why you saw the most confident Adin Hill we've seen yet. You saw the most under control Adin Hill we've seen yet, and you saw something closer to what we saw when he went on the run to win the Stanley Cup. That is what the Golden Knights need. If they're going to be the elite team that they want to be, and that the record at the moment says that they're going to be, eventually things are going to taper off. They're not getting 40 goals from Ivan Barbashev. Well, maybe they might get 40 goals from Ivan Barbashev. They're not getting 35 from Keegan Kolazar. They're probably not getting 30 from Brett Howden. Like, a lot of these numbers are going to taper off. They have to play better defensively and allow that to then move forward and generate the offense. You look at this game, and even if you don't get any of the Kolazar goals or the Wah goal, if you don't even score one in that third period and we walk off 2-0, it feels absolutely exactly the same. There's no different in how dominant the game was because they added those 3 goals at the end. It's nice to have them. It's nice for the stat padding. But in the way that the game went, the style of play is what we want to see. That's the style that is going to help them win consistently, both here and once they go on the road. They're going over to LA next, then they come back here, then it's off to a number of different places, Utah included. There's a lot to look at to say, all right, well, is this going to start to travel? That's where we get to. So let's talk about a couple of different things, but specifically about some of the numbers that I dug up earlier today and some of the things that I saw in this game. And we're starting to kind of focus on how the shooting numbers are going, how the expected goal numbers are going, those types of things. But first, I'll tell you that this Periscope and all Periscopes are brought to you by the Jimmerson Law Firm. The Jimmerson Law Firm is one of Las Vegas's preeminent law firms specializing in high-stakes business, civil, and family litigation. When winning matters, seek out the Jimmerson Law Firm, and winning clearly matters when the Golden Knights are at home. 39 goals in 7 home games. That's insanity. 5.5, more than 5.5 per home game. Unbelievable. The one I tweeted out last game is insanity. They had 6 or more goals in 6, or they had 6 or more goals in 4 of the first 6. It's now 4 of the first 7. Granted, you end up with only 5 today. Maybe they could have got another one, but it was 6. They have scored 6 goals now in 4 of the 7, right? 4 of the 7 games, they've gotten 6 goals. Only one season ever have they scored 6 or more than 4 times at home in an entire season. It's wild. So, and that was the first year. So I think they're probably going to get to at least 5. We'll see if they can get to the 6 that they had that year. But 5, this is another game with 5. They continue to just pound pucks into the goal. And today, I thought the first portion of the game, which is basically up until the Kolazar goal in the third period, you started to see a little bit more of what I think the offense is going to look like long term. What the offense is going to look like, I guess, over most of this season. So the numbers that I pulled up, the number that's the craziest one beyond anything is they're over 14 goals above expected at home through 6 games. It's now almost 15 through 7 games. It actually might be closer to 14 and a half or so. That number is going to regress. There's no question that number is clearly going to go down. But when you look at the chart that I tweeted out, and maybe I can actually get the chart. Let's see if I can pull the chart up real quick here, because I would be nice to. Oh, we don't want that. I don't know what extra camera does. Let's see if we can get the chart up here. It doesn't look like it's going to let me. So if you pull up the Twitter, we can get the chart. The chart of where the goals have been scored for the Golden Knights. Most of them have been scored right in front of the goal, inside at the very least the home plate area. The home plate is, if you draw a home plate from the goal all the way out to the circles and all of that, that's basically where it is. And if you're in that area, you're going to score a lot. The Golden Knights scored a bunch more from that area, not the early goals. Not necessarily the first two, a little bit farther out, even though maybe both of them were actually in the home plate area, but certainly not right on top. It's the Kolazar goals. It's the power play goals. It's a lot of what you're seeing is right there, right in front of the goal. That is replicable. That is something that even if the numbers say you're not going to score as often as you have been, and I would argue they aren't getting as many of those chances as maybe the numbers indicate, saying, well, you have 39 goals and 34 of them or whatever it is inside of that whole house area, home plate area, whatever you want to call it. That's based on the number of chances. They probably have outscored the number of chances. Some of those are going to get stopped, but the number of chances that have been finished are from those areas that it's not going to stop. If they keep getting those chances, and even at lesser or equal numbers or slightly better numbers, you're going to continue getting the goals that you've been getting. And that's kind of what we saw as this game went on. As they started to wear Calgary down, they started to get more and more opportunities directly out in front of the goal. Kolazar pokes the one home to start the third period. You get more as we go on. Like, a lot of that is replicable. Cassidy mentioned the power play. I think it's very clear that the power play is dangerous. I think over the next week or so, I finally came up with one of these videos I want to make, and we'll get some. I'll show you that one. It's Hurdle on puck recovery. He is phenomenal at it on the power play, and it's making a huge difference in how often they're spending in the zone and how often they're kind of disorganizing the defensive penalty kill unit quickly by making sure that they get these recoveries and then get the puck back to Eichel, get the puck back to Stone, and before they're able to get back into position, the Golden Knights have another opportunity, and that's why they're getting a lot of these power play goals. I do think that as the season goes on, they need to play more games like this where the goals against number, the expected goals against number is lower than it has been, especially at 5-on-5. I thought today's game, you saw the stick dominance, you saw the power dominance, you saw the territorial dominance and tilting the ice in the way that the Golden Knights need to tilt the ice to put themselves in a good position. That happens, and then the rest of the offense will come. And even if the offense doesn't come and slows down to the level that maybe we more expect it to, and I do expect it to come down quite a bit, I am starting to get convinced that maybe this is more of a 3.5 goal team, 3.3, 3.4, somewhere in there, as opposed to when the season started. I thought they would struggle to get to 3 every single night. So I'm starting to get a little bit more convinced that that's the case. Top line being as dominant as they have been. Some of the ancillary piece wingers have done a little bit better defensively than I thought, so they've gotten a little bit more offensive zone time because they've been a little bit better on the walls. I think a lot of that is kind of starting to convince me that it's better. That being said, the road trip wasn't particularly good, and these games have all been at home. When they do play that one line, when it is a top-heavy, dominant team with one line, and I understand that a lot of the goals have come, and the other three lines have certainly come along, especially as Carlson got himself back into the lineup. But as long as there is one line that if you shut down, you got a pretty good job or chance of shutting down the Golden Knights. The road games are going to be more difficult. So we'll see how that goes as we now get a road game in LA. We've got a couple other road games coming up. That's going to be interesting, and that's going to kind of give us more information as we go. But I do think we are in a little bit better position, or at least in a little bit, we have a lot more information to say, yeah, it does look like they are going to find ways to score goals, even if that top line at 5-on-5 isn't as dominant and isn't scoring all of the goals immediately. Power plays way better, and I think that's going to continue being good. I don't think it operates at 40% like it has at home, but I do think they're probably a 25, 26, 27% team, and that's really good. I do think it's going to be the best power play in the history of the team. I don't think it's going to be all that close, and I think it's going to be one of the better ones in the league. So that's certainly exciting, and that kind of takes a little bit of that pressure off the 5-on-5 scoring that's always kind of been the hallmark. Even if they have a game where they don't dominate at 5-on-5, if they can find a way to draw 2 or 3 penalties, that should be a goal or two, and that'll put them in a much better position. I do want to talk about Theodore's extension because I didn't have a chance to do that when that happened. And also my opinion's starting to already shift in a positive direction. It's not like it was a negative direction or anything of that sort. I would not say that was a negative move at all. I definitely would not don't think that at all. But I thought that it was kind of like a wait and see type of deal, where when they did sign him, I think it locked up a lot of money towards the defense. I think it locked up a lot of money towards what you're going to be moving forward. So if you kind of look through all of the free agents, it's really just the goaltenders and McNabb, and then there's a couple other players like Howden, Kolazar. Like there are some different players, but for right now, most of the players that are going to be the best players on this team are under contract, not only next year, but a couple years in the future. So to me, looking at the Theodore one, I thought it really kind of locked them in to this roster, which to me is still a little bit of wait and see, but 7-0 at home, you start to say, all right, well, maybe this is the roster that you do want to you do want to lock yourself into. I don't feel as like at rest. I don't know. I don't know what the term is, but in that moment, I still look at it and I still say, all right, well, it depends on how this team progresses moving forward. If this team puts themselves in a position where they are going to be needing help at a deadline, needing help in an off season, they don't have a lot of space to do it. And it's literally because almost all of these players are locked up. There's not a lot of cap space. There's not a lot of draft picks. There's not a lot of capital to make these moves. And one of the ways to do it would have been to say, all right, let's move on from Theodore and put ourselves in a position where we bring something back, or we move on from Theodore and we have all of this money. If that's what they decide to do in the offseason. They ended up not doing that. Again, I think the term is good. I think that the AAV is good. Obviously, I think the Golden Knights would have preferred the term being 5 years, but you don't get the deal signed. So it's 7. It's fine. It's probably better that it's not 8. That is good. So really, in regards to how much he was paid, how long he was paid, none of that doesn't really concern me at all. Not a full no move clause, which is certainly good, but it does to me kind of lock in this roster. And I know that at this very moment, when they're 7-2-1, you're going to feel pretty darn good about this very roster. Even with a couple of injuries, Olofsson's out, Haig's been out, Korzak stepped in fine. I don't think he's quite up to speed of where he needs to be to remain in the lineup. I would potentially give a look to Hutton, maybe in one of the next couple of games. If Haig is going to continue to be out, we will see. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I am still a little bit waiting and seeing what does it look like. If the shooting percentage goes down to 9%, which is not that crazy, if we do have a month of it being 9%, are they going to be able to defend like they did today as often as they need to make up for a 9% shooting percentage that is probably going to come for an extended period of time? I don't know when that's going to come. Hopefully that doesn't come anytime soon, and they're far enough along that it doesn't even really make a difference. But if we get to that point and we start to say, all right, well, the offense isn't the dominant wagon that it has been to this point. Are we in need of all three of these offensive minded defensemen? Are they going to continue being a reason why they're generating as much offense? And are you going to be able to play the level you need to defensively with all three of them for an extended period of time over a 40 game span, 50, whatever, however long you want to look at it? If the answer at any point is no or maybe not, you're going to then look back at this Theodore deal and say, uh-oh, we've kind of hamstrung ourselves into a position where there's no other way to go. If the team remains good and they continue to generate the offense and these guys can step up and play this style of defensive game, and this team ends up being the Pacific Division champs and a 1 or 2 seed and has a nice run in the Stanley Cup playoffs and gets themselves, even if they don't get all the way to the Cup final or whatever, even if they have just a pretty darn good season, you're going to feel really good about the position that they were in getting that deal done. That's kind of where I'm at on all of that. If anybody has questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat right now. I don't know that this is necessarily a question, but Brisson is trade bait. I don't necessarily think that's the case based on age and production to this point. If you think back to basically where we were with Cody Glass at this point, it's fairly similar. They got Nolan Patrick, which was another essentially guy like that. I could see that being maybe possible, that they can move Brisson for another guy like that. But to me, there's not a ton of value until he's able to make that show that on the ice. Like, yes, it would be nice if they can get him in there and get 7, 8, 9 goals over the course of a 30 game span, 40 game, even 40, and you put yourself in a position where it's like, all right, this guy with more opportunity might be better somewhere else, and you can get something for it, whether that's a future or that helps you get some different type of player. That may be the case. But as it currently stands, 10 games into the season, doesn't have a goal, healthy scratch for Cole Schwint. Like, it's not really, it doesn't really have all that much value at the moment. So that may change. And the new defense combos have proven that they've been the best thing they've done. Keep Petro and Theodore apart. Yeah. So to me, I didn't mind the experiment to open the season. Like, that didn't really bother me. I understood the idea of wanting to get Theodore back to the left. I understood the idea of Haig and Hannafin because they had a pretty good run last year before the postseason. Like, I think a lot of that is good. But I thought they were maybe one game too slow to do that and make that change and go back to what has been a little bit more comfortable. And I think is going to work over the long term is having Pietrangelo and Hannafin together. I think you've gotten more out of Hannafin over the course of the last couple of games when he's been with Pietrangelo than you did when he was playing with Haig. So I think just getting the most out of him is certainly helpful. I think you're going to get the same out of Shea no matter where he ends up, whether that's White Cloud, whether that's with McNabb, if it ends up being eventually with Hutton or Korzak or however it ends up falling, even if it's Haig, I think you're still going to get kind of a normal thing with it. It's just, how does the deployment work? And again, since they've made this change, it's been 4 home games. And so, because it's been 4 home games, the Golden Knights have had the opportunity to put their loaded up top line and their loaded up top pair in every best situation that they want to put them in. When you get to play at home, you have last change. You control a good portion of the matchups. Now, as they go on the road with the loaded up pair, with the loaded up top line, you might have different setups, different situations that I think are going to be harder to overcome. The team is less balanced the way that it's currently constructed than in the way that it has been in the past. And that's potentially why you see more success at home, less success on the road. I understand it's such a small sample size. The home sample is actually pretty good, being 7 games now. The smaller sample is the road sample. I'm certainly not on board with saying this team's great at home, this team sucks on the road. I don't think I'm there yet. I think we're getting to the point where we're pretty comfortable that they're going to be pretty darn good at home, because it's going to take a hell of a lot to ruin the 7-0 record. So they're going to end up with a pretty good season at home, I would think. But I think as we go back on the road, we want to see more defense like they had today. We want to see more scoring down the lineup. We want to see the power play continue. We want to see them draw penalties the way that they have been able to at home, and they're going to have to prove that on the road with the more difficult situations. And until then, that's where this one comes in. What would it take to consider breaking up the top line? I think that's where, if they struggle in road games, if the matchups are creating problems, so you're constantly getting whatever other line that's not your top line in bad situations, or the top line is not able to generate at the same level that they have been able to generate so far this season. If that were to happen in some of these road games, then you potentially say, okay, let's put Carlson with Stone. Let's maybe try Dorofeev up with Barbashev and Eichel. Do we try somebody else? Howden's been good. Does Olafson come back and he gets another look? Like, there's a lot of different options that potentially could be used to break it up. But at right now, I don't think there would be any reason to do it. Now, this is almost all home games. They played 10 games this season. 7 of them have been at home. They will end up having 11 of their first 14 games at home. So it is going to be skewed quite heavily to, it's going to work early in the season to have that. If you have a top line, it is much easier to play at home. So we have to be mindful of that as we move forward, that it's not a guarantee that it's going to be this easy as we move forward. But for now, I'm not all that concerned with it. So that's certainly good. Thanks again to the Jimmerson Law Firm for sponsoring every Periscope this season. We'll continue to do. I'm going to start doing Twitter Spaces after some of the games as well, to allow some of you guys to talk a little bit more and get some of your thoughts on. I'll just end with the goalie. I talked a little bit about it. I will continue to talk about it, and I think that it's an important aspect that I don't really understand what's going on with the fan base. I don't understand why we've completely dove off the cliff on Adin Hill. It makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, the guy won the Stanley Cup, then came out the very next season and was pushing Vezina level numbers until he got injured. And then once he got injured, yes, there was a little bit of a tough road towards the back end of the season, but then he gets put back in there in the playoffs. And in the 3 games he played in the postseason, he was excellent yet again. So I don't know why all of a sudden a couple of rough starts to begin this season, and not all of it's even his fault. I would argue most of it's not his fault. I don't understand why all of a sudden some other goalie that comes in who historically has not been very good, who does not have anything near the history of positivity that Adin Hill has. Granted, he has less injury concerns, more starts, so maybe that's a little bit more comfortable. But even in those games, I think some of the worst goals this season have been allowed by Samsonov. It's not to say that I think Samsonov's bad. I don't. I think Samsonov is a good to decent backup. I think Adin Hill is a good to decent starter. I think both of them, when put in situations behind a good defense, will be good. When they play behind a bad defense, they will be bad. Depending on which guy is in there when the team plays like shit in front of them, that's the one that you're going to end up thinking sucks. We have to go beyond the simple scoreboard. It can't just be, he allowed 4, that guy stinks, play the other guy, he must be better. It just doesn't make sense. It's not the way that the Golden Knights are going to look at it. It's not the way that they're going to coach it. It's none of that. It's going to come down to, will they defend at the level that they need to defend? If they do, you will end up with shutouts against a team that's been pretty darn good to start the season in Calgary. If they don't, you will end up allowing 3 goals towards the end of a game in Tampa, and you will lose a game that you should have won on the road in Florida. Both goalies were involved in both of those. To me, the goalie shouldn't matter for this team. If the goalie is the biggest talking point of this team, we have problems. We have big problems. It's going to come down to, how well do they defend in front of them? How well do they control the play? How well are they able to make sure that all of these challenges in front of them are not a problem? And yeah, you could say he looks unsteady, but then look at what he looked like today. He ends up getting the shutout. He really didn't have all that much. The only real one that I can think of is they shot one high. He ended up like jumping up to kind of head it. I don't know what was going on there. It got tipped, it came down, and it ended up going to the side. If that goes in, yeah, that's going to look bad. But over the course of the season, I don't think he looks any more unsteady than Samsonov. Like, I don't think he has lacked confidence. I think that he's been placed in tough situations a number of different times. And if they stop putting him in the tough situations, they will find a way to make sure that he has excellent games. That's what happened today. That's what I expect to happen whenever they play on the road. That's what I expect to happen when they play back here. All of these situations that everyone loses their mind on Adin Hill because he's given up 4 goals should be focused on the 6 guys playing defense, the wingers, the centers. The reason that these breakdowns are happening, look towards the 5, not the 1. Can he stop some of those shots? Absolutely. Can he find a way to bail them out a little bit more than he has bailed them out so far over the course of this season? Yes, that would be terrific. I would make the argument that we could also use that from Samsonov. I don't think one has been better than the other. And I know that the way that the Golden Knights are going to view this, and this is probably not going to change unless there is a massive shift in how they're playing, Adin Hill is going to be the starter. Adin Hill will remain the starter, and it will take something monumental for him to not be the starter. Until that happens, we got to stop losing our mind every time the guy gives up goals. That's all I got for tonight. Thanks again to the Jimmerson Law Firm for sponsoring all of the SinBin's Periscopes this season. We will be back. I don't know. We're doing a podcast tomorrow, so I doubt I'll do one after the Kings game, but then we got a home game here on Saturday. Maybe we'll do a Twitter space after that one. I don't know. We'll see. That's all I got for tonight. Good night, everybody.